Thank you very much, Marielle. As Marielle said, I'm Miriam Trowell, and I am one of the co-EDs, but the role that I spend the most time in is that head of programming and curricula role, and working with our team to develop the curricula, which is always an ongoing process, always working to improve, get feedback from teachers. How can we make it better? Get feedback from students. How can we make it more enjoyable, and ways for them to really just expand their worldview and get out into the city. So, I am going to be talking today about one of my favorite field experiences that we go on. It probably has something to do with the fact that I live very close to the zoo, and it's where I took my daughters, and still take my daughters all the time, because it's a great Saturday, Sunday sort of, you have nothing else going on, thing to do. And it to me is like really amazing place for that. And then when you though think about the numbers of our Live It Learn It students that have not gone there, about 60% of our students tell us that it is their very first time going to the to the National Zoo. And this is third graders, and it's like the zoo is free. And so Live It Learn It is definitely doing its part to make sure that it's not just their first experience or their last experience. So today I'm pulling back the curtain a little bit with our very first Lunch and Learn. Thank you, Marielle, for this fabulous idea for us to talk and get in touch with you all about one of our most popular programs too, which is when we take third grade students to the Amazonia House at the zoo. And this isn't just like a field trip, right? Where we're just going, releasing kids at the zoo. No, we don't do that here at Live It Learn It. This experience actually aligns perfectly with the third unit of study for third graders. So we tend to program this in December, January, February for that curricular alignment around animal habitats. So in school, students are reading a mix of informational texts and literary texts to understand how animals adapt to their habitats and how animals depend on their environment to survive. But why just read about it? Like, we could see it for ourselves. And that's what we do. So teachers request this all the time to bring that classroom learning to life. And when we think about the zoo, right, it's not near a metro station. Parking is a nightmare. And planning a visit with like 30, 40, 50 students as a class for a teacher who already has so many things on their plate, like that's a level of complicated that is a lot to ask for an educator, which is where we step in as an organization. And so how do we as an organization take what could be a chaotic day at the zoo and turn it into a learning experience for the students? Which the Amazonia House, if you've never been, is kind of tucked away. Like, I'm gesturing if you can see, because the zoo is that way in relation to my house, is like tucked away from the crowds on the American Trail. That's like that path on the National Zoo that's kind of like at the back. This is me with students also. I do a lot of gesturing like this. So coming along for that journey. And so it's like tucked back. And then we kind of veer them that way. So before we even get to the zoo, we do about a 45-minute pre-lesson in the classroom a day or two before the field experience. And we're not just like talking about animals with kids, we are turning them into adaptation detectives. This is when, with the kiddos, we are exploring vocab and concepts like camouflage, nocturnal habits, survival strategies. So you can see in like this photo in the top right that this friend is holding up, where he has a visual image of camouflage along with the word, the definition of it, and other visual images to help. So that way, if a student is, a really great reader, they have the definition to help them match with the picture. And if they're not, we're giving them additional images. So they're like, what is similar with these images? What are you noticing? Can you find another picture that looks very similar to that one, that has similar characteristics? Yes, that's camouflage, and that's what this is. And helping them with like that language as well. So we bring out those visuals. Of the Amazon rainforest also. And we dive into questions with students like, what makes this place unique? How we're going to discover, how do animals adapt to this environment? And so we'll have either images, video to be like, okay, what do we see when we're looking at these photos of this place? How's it different from where we are right now? What does it mean if we're saying that a place is like, there's a lot of rain? Is it a lot of rain all the time? Is it a lot of rain in certain periods of time? What would happen if there's a lot of rain in certain periods of time? Like, how would you survive? And we're really starting to help them do that thinking. And as you can see, we do a lot with students working together in groups. So they're kind of like discovering the answers together, and then we're bringing it. Um, all back and clarifying things. So by the end of this lesson for kids, they're not just like kids, right? We have set them up that you all are going to be explorers, and we've started to hone their observation skills so that they're ready to tackle the Amazonia house with a scientist eye, which is really important for us. And then comes the big day. So, like the next day, we load all the kids up on the bus. We are getting like they're excited. We're on the bus. It's the moment we've all been prepping for. And we don't just show up like, no, absolutely not. We're not just showing up to the zoo with kids. We come equipped with materials to orchestrate this entire adventure. So we gather students outside the Amazonia house, and we give them their mission briefing. We tell them, remember, like, you're not just visitors here. You're scientists. And so you have to observe like scientists. And so we have like little touches, like we have these animal adaptation scavenger hunts that we give for students that are laminated, um, and dry erase markers. So that way they're going into the Amazon house like with a mission in mind, to help them see. And so as you can see on the screen, we have one in English, and of course we have Spanish speaking students, and so we have a version in Spanish as well, to try to make our materials accessible for kids as possible. Um, but here's also where we add in like a little fabulous touch, that actually was inspired by my own kids, like adventures. My kids love binoculars. So we supply students with binoculars for this field experience, as you can see in these photos. And let me tell you, there is something about giving a kid a pair of binoculars that it's like they've put on a whole new persona, right? It turns them into the mini explorers that we know that they are. So once they have those binoculars on, we're guiding them through the exhibits. They're getting up close with the stingrays and the poison frogs. And hopefully, we're able to see a sloth there. But the binoculars really help the kids spot details that they might otherwise miss, like the tiny webbed feet of birds. Which is, what we're aiming to get them to see is like what sorts of adaptations are they noticing when we're in the Amazonia house. And some of those things it just gets better by having binoculars with it. So it's a simple addition, but it's something that makes the experience for kids all feel all the more like an adventure. And so we here at Lily are all about like those small little touches that make something special for kids, but it's also something that folks at home can do, that teachers can do as well. So I love our time in the Amazonia house. And one of the things, like, I definitely want to share is if you've ever been in the Amazonia house, if you've never been, you definitely have to go. If you've ever been, one of the things that we have to do before we enter kids into the Amazonia house, first of all, they're like double doors, right? Because the animals in the Amazonia house are it's their home. Like they're free to fly around, particularly the spoonbill. And so preparing kids for that, all right, you all, we're about to go in someplace where it's this is their home. And like, how do we treat someone else's home when we go into it? Yep, we're gonna be calm. And like we just prepare kids for all of those moments, but it is so amazing when you have like that spoonbill that was like up top and that like swoops down, and all of a sudden the kids are like, but like as you can see, like we prepared them really well, like with the kid in the down here with her finger over her lips, like reminding students that like, hey y'all, like we're here as scientists, but we also need to respect the animals and environments. It's just like that sense of like we're all in this together. That community feeling is beautiful. And one question that I get a lot is whether we coordinate with zoo staff. We don't officially coordinate with zoo staff. I would love for that to be a thing. So, if anybody knows someone at the zoo that would like to help us out with that, that would be great. But we've had numerous times, there's no way to get around it, where when a zookeeper hears like that hushed excitement of like 30 kids in a space, they'll come out and be part of it. And so it's so magical when that happens. And it's happened a number of times where I've been at the zoo, and like I can just remember the excitement in the air with the kids when we walked into the Amazonia. We let them in, and we always like kind of release them a little bit to explore and see on their own before we bring them back together. And so the students were pointing out details of the stingrays and the spoonbills in that freshwater stingray aquarium. That's right when you enter. And they were like, look at that tail. Did you see that bird move? Like, and I guess one of the veterinarians happened to notice us. And so when I pulled students back, gave them their next assignment, I wanted them to gather information on the stingray's body, and the spoonbill's beak. The zoo staff member came up, one of the veterinarians, introduced herself. I am so sorry. I do not remember her name. It was 2 years ago. And she asked if like she could jump in to share a bit more information. And of course I said yes, right? I encourage our staff all the time to say yes to those opportunities. We say yes to kids when they want to share, yes to teachers. And so definitely said yes to the staff member, and so pulled the kids all back together, and she obviously is an expert, right, at this. This is her job. She started talking about all the unique adaptations of the stingray's like flattened body and the spoonbill's like specialized beak in a way that I could not have. And just her excitement about it transferred to our students, and it was just like to see like their eyes widen when she was talking about how like the stingrays navigate like the murky water to get to their food. Just absolutely amazing. And students asked her questions like if she'd ever seen anyone get eaten by a shark before. But it was like such a great learning opportunity, right? Because then she was able to talk about like the difference between fresh water versus salt water, and how like in the rainforest, which is fresh water, there's actually only two species of sharks that can live in freshwater. So we're getting like all of this information that we had not anticipated, but it's all the sorts of information that we would not have gotten or known to ask or known to get if we had been in the classroom. That's the students are getting in this such a unique experience for them. And so what an unexpected moment that I'm sure turned into like this, those sorts of memories. Like, when your kid comes home and you're like, what'd you do at school today? And they're like, nothing. There is no kid that day that was saying nothing. They're like, oh, I went to the Amazonia Zoo and I got to talk to the veterinarian. Did you know this? Because you know how kids like have random facts. Did you know that there are only two species of sharks that can swim in freshwater that are adapted to it? So an experience that like we wouldn't have had otherwise had we been in the classroom, and it's like the kind of magic that you can't plan for, but it's the exact sort of magic that kids need to in their classroom to like bring them together as a community and to enhance their learning. And that's not all. After our field experience, we also have our post lesson. So we have the pre lesson before we take students, the field experience that's at the destination, and our post lesson. And our post lesson is when we continue the learning back in the classroom. We almost always start by having students share what they saw, what stood out to them, new discoveries. I love this part of post lessons because it's also the time where kids who have been inspired will come in with like a new fact or a new discovery or something that they looked up on their own, and like that's their spotlight time to like share that information with their peers, to be like, oh yeah, I read this or I saw this document, and I love it so much. It's like that first 10 minutes that if you're with me in a classroom always turns into like 15 minutes, because I never want to tell kids like, oh, nope, like we only have this. I'm like, no, what do you have to say? Yes, share it with the class. I love that part so much. But then it's also the post lesson for this particular unit is a time where we tap into students' creativity, and we kind of expand their thinking by starting with a game that shows that adaptations aren't just limited to one habitat, but they're really part of nature's strategy for survival everywhere. And so we play a game so that students can see how like camouflage doesn't just work and the isn't just an adaptation for the rainforest, but what does camouflage look like in different environments, to make sure that they're really understanding what it means, or what is a behavioral adaptation of fish swimming in a school of fish to appear larger. What does that look like when zebras do it in the savannah, right? There, it's the same thing. It's transferable knowledge for them. Um, and then almost all of our post lessons include some sort of like artistic component, because we just see that students are not getting enough art, and how important art is. And so we have them either choose an animal or create an animal, which is so fun. And its habitat as well. And they have to like label that animal with like the three adaptations that would help that animal thrive in its environment. And so, like, we love that part of the post lesson because it really gives students just a chance to express the ways and themselves in ways that they don't often get to in school, like their art, um, like just art and creative components are limited or opportunities are limited. So this is that opportunity. And it also helps them just to reflect on like their experience and their learning in like just a personal way for them. So it allows like students to show what they know, really no matter their background or strength. And so we give kids like if they don't feel like drawing is their thing, like, oh, why don't you write about it, or why don't you present and said like, why don't you talk to me about it, and then you can like just tell what you were thinking to the entire classroom. So just different ways for students to engage. But I think it's like, as I said, it's like the post lesson is like just my favorite with kids. I love field experiences, of course, as well. But it's like these moments where students are getting to kind of like reflect on what they've experienced, connect it to the things that they know, the learning that they've done in the classroom, and be creative. I think that makes what Lily does like really unique, and why teachers and students love it so much. And so, while we do our part, because this is like no small part, to manage all the logistics and the prep for teachers so that they can focus on their students, and being present with the students. I think just the way in which we're always kind of pushing to be creative and have students talking, it really creates an atmosphere for kids where learning feels like an adventure. Binoculars, the laminated adventure sheets for them. And we're just helping them see that like even a simple visit to the zoo, it can be an unforgettable experience, where everyone is able to bring what they know, what they like, back, from the classroom out to the field experience, and then back into the classroom to share in all of those moments together. And so just going to leave you all as I wrap up my time. I took a lot of time, sorry. I'll leave you all with a tip. Get some binoculars. Get binoculars, bring binoculars. They're great. They can be used everywhere. It turns the smallest walk into a world class adventure. And that's all I have. Yeah. So if anyone has questions, I'd love to answer them. No questions, that's okay too. I talked a lot. And you can come off mute if you had any.
There we go. Thank you. That was fabulous.
Oh, thanks, Cindy.
Yeah, and there's only that Amazonian house that you focus on at the zoo. Are you thinking about expanding that to other areas or to other parts by any chance?
Cindy, it's like you're in my brain. Yes. I
That's fabulous. But I know that new birdhouse too. Like,
Yes, that is exactly where I want that. So that is my
yeah.
next area where
It
I want
seems
to
like,
take students.
that could be, there's so many or a number of things that could be. And another thought I had was with some of the other places I've had, like there's an educational component to the museum or the zoo doesn't have that where they have people evidently.
So the zoo has a lot of like online offerings that they
Uh,
do. And I
uh-huh.
think so like I know that they have a lot of online offerings because I did them with my kids during COVID. But
Yeah,
I'm sure that they have additional ones. We find that sometimes it's easier for us to do all of like the logistical like scheduling on our own, just because um, having a program requires now a level of coordination
yeah,
with the museum plus the teachers. And so because
yeah,
this is one of our most popular programs that like teachers want to go in the morning and the afternoon, if we were to add in the layer of trying to schedule with another party, it might make it a little bit more difficult. Though um, one of my favorite pairings that we've done is we've actually worked with the United States Botanic Garden before because they have a fabulous program. And we did like the virtual pairing. So the pre lesson was Live It, Learn It, the field experience was Live It, Learn It, and our post lesson was a virtual time with the United States Botanic Garden. We also have like a programming that we offer there as well with them. But that was like such a beautiful, like, it worked out really well for us
mhm,
to partner with them in that way.
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thanks for that question. But yes, next up is definitely the birdhouse. Like, hands
Yeah,
is the birdhouse
that's
because I can
amazing.
imagine during the post lesson, like I've already visualized this. I just need to have time to do it. We would have students get different size objects that they would pick up, like they would have to craft a beak with like straws or chopsticks or what have you, and then see how those, or like two spoons together, see how the different beak sizes and shapes and all of that help with like the adaptation for what that bird eats.
Mhm.
That's, as soon as I have a moment, I'm gonna, that's my next one.
Right.
So we're right at time, but if people want to stay and ask more questions, Miriam and I have a little more time. If you need to pop off, that's totally fine. Our contact information to email us and ask us more questions is here, and you can stay connected with us and what else we're doing through social media or our weekly text club. But we are so glad that you were here today and spending a little bit of your morning or lunchtime with us and getting to know Live It, Learn It Better. So thank you very much for everyone for coming. And again, if you want to stay and ask some questions, we're here.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
Thank
Learned a
you.
lot. Yeah.
And if you have suggestions for our next lunch and learn, if there's a program that you would like to learn more about, or anything that we do, this is really an opportunity for. We know not everyone can go to a field experience, and so if you just want a little bit more information about what we do, I have really enjoyed this. And so obviously I spent like all the time talking. I told Marielle at first, I was like, I don't think I can talk for that long. Like maybe we should make them short. Like clearly I didn't have that problem. So if there's something that you want, please like email either Marielle or myself. Because this is fun. I would love to share more about what we do.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.